I know you have had a long day, but it is my pleasure to introduce two wonderful honorary speakers for you today. One is the GW President, Stephen Knapp, and the European Union Ambassador to the United States. And if I may introduce President Stephen Knapp.
Thank you very much, Professor Rehman. It's a pleasure to be here for the closing session of today's activities. And Mr. Ambassador and the others who have enjoyed this all day long, I want to mention that we're here in the home of our Elliott School of International Affairs. We call this building, which unfortunately right now is just called 1957 E Street, which is not a very expressive name. The name of this room, however, is expressive. It's the City View Room. And if you have a chance to look outside, you'll see the reason for that. This balcony that on two sides of us here really does afford quite a view of the Capitol and the monument in one direction. By the way, we like to call that monument our monument because it's the George Washington Monument. It's a little cracked at the moment, but they're fixing it. And anyway, this is a symbol, I think, this location of what it means to be a global university in the heart of Washington, D.C., with the World Bank in one direction, the State Department, the Federal Reserve, and so on surrounding us. So I am delighted to join you for this closing session. This is the 2012 Eurochallenge Global Financial Literacy Program, and would like to thank the European Union Research Center, under the leadership of Professor Scheherazade Rehman, for hosting and organizing this initiative on behalf of our entire university, and also thank the European Union, the World Affairs Council, and Mayor Vincent Gray's office for their support of this event. I do hope you found today's sessions both informative and enlightening, and I want to wish you all the best as you move on to the regional competition this coming spring. And it's now my distinct honor to introduce the final speaker, the head of the delegation of the European Union to the United States, Ambassador João Valde-Almeida. I am delighted to note that this is his second visit to George Washington this year. In April, he participated in the Ambassadors Forum hosted by the Elliott School of International Affairs. Ambassador Almeida has served in his current post since August 2010. Before his appointment in Washington, he served as the Director General for External Relations at the European Commission, the European Union's executive body. In this capacity, he helped to formulate and execute the EU's foreign policy, and he played a key role in preparing for the new European External Action Service introduced by the Treaty of Lisbon. He also served as the head of cabinet for European Commission President José Manuel Barroso, and acted as President Barroso's permanent personal representative for the G8 and G20 summits. Earlier in his career, he held several senior positions at the European Commission, including Deputy Chief Spokesman. He holds a degree in history from the University of Lisbon and has studied journalism and management in the United States, in France, Japan, and the United Kingdom. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Ambassador João Valde-Almeida.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you, all of you, for being here, for all the work you've done throughout the day, and in anticipation for all the work you've been doing in the coming months. And I can guarantee you that you'll have a lot to do, because just because of you and just thinking of you, we have in recent months slightly complicated our European situation, so that you have a real challenge when you prepare for this Euro challenge. Let me say a few words just. First of all, 1957 is a very good number for your door, because it is in fact the year that the European Union was born. The Treaty of Rome was signed, entered into force in 1957. And I was born also in 1957. So if you want to think how Europe looks like at the age of 54, you look at me. But Europe looks a little bit better than I do. So looks a little bit younger and a little bit more dynamic than I can be myself. In any case, a pleasure to be here. You're going to have, I believe, a very interesting experience. I was last year in New York at the final of last year's challenge, and I was so impressed. And Amy knows that. Stacey, you were there then? No, you were, but Amy was. So I was so impressed by the commitment of all the people in the challenge, the quality of their inputs, the sophistication of their presentations, that I said immediately, I want this to continue. I want to support it as much as I can. So I'm very happy that we are now able, because of all those that came together, and certainly George Washington University and their European Union Research Center, which I want to congratulate, for enlarging this to the district, to the Washington, D.C. area. I know also that the World Affairs Council was instrumental in this. So I want to thank all of those, and I'm forgetting maybe some, that contributed to it. And I'm so happy that the area where I live, I'm now a Washingtonian, for some years at least, is now part of this challenge. So a word on how Europe is doing. You will learn more about it as you progress in your preparations. I mean, we are basically, I'll try to be simple and short. We are addressing the aftershocks of the 2008 financial crisis. You know what happened? You know, our system sort of almost broke down, right? The international financial system. It started in the US, but it went all around the world, showing very clearly that we are in this together. I mean, in today's globalized economy, there is no such thing as an American problem or European problem. We have global problems. And you cannot address an American problem by simply taking action inside America, as much as we cannot solve our problems by simply doing European. We have to look at the wider picture. But of course, some countries suffer more than others. And what we have today in Europe is some of the most vulnerable countries in Europe. You take the case of Greece, you take the case of my own country, Portugal, and a few others, are feeling the negative impact of the crisis in a very peculiar way, in a very difficult way. But because these countries are part of an integrated, union, if you want, and particularly those who are inside the euro area, which we call the Economic and Monetary Union, of course, if you have a problem inside a system that is so integrated, you are bound to have a systemic problem. That is, the individual country's problem is going to have an impact on the system. So what we're doing today is trying to address, not only address the individual problems of Greece, for instance, which we are doing in a very, strong and committed way. We also have to address the problems that these countries' problems have created for the entire system. So we have also to deal with issues of governance. How do we organize decisions? How we move forward? So I'm trying to oversimplify things that Amy Madaris knows, by the way, much better than I do in all the economic and financial details of it, and I'm sure she has told you a few things about this. What I'm saying is that Europe is doing this not by moving backwards, not by destroying what we have achieved in the last 54 years, but by moving forward, by reinforcing and strengthening the mechanisms of integration. So what you saw last week, if you read a little bit of newspapers or watched the news, is European leaders agreeing to move forward in order, in doing so, to solve some of the problems they have been dealing with in the last few months. This will be difficult. You will continue to hear a lot about these agreements and statements and all that, because we are 27 countries, and soon to be 28, because Croatia is joining. And within the euro area, we are 17. So if you think of the US, where it is so difficult today, and I'm being a little bit less diplomatic than I should, so difficult for the US to agree on a number of things, and you only have two parties, one president and one Congress, you multiply that by 27 or 17, and you can imagine how difficult it is to reach decisions, consensus, agreements. So we will continue to hear a lot about Europeans in disagreement, they don't get their act together. It's not easy. But there's one point that I would like you to understand as well. You may talk, and the next weeks you'll be dealing with very sort of technical issues about the euro, the economy, monetary policy, the central bank, all that. Very, technical issues. Don't forget that nothing of this makes sense, in the case of Europe, without the political dimension. So what is behind our drive towards economic integration, towards a single currency, is a political objective of bringing Europeans together. We don't want more wars in Europe. We have had enough. Centuries of war, civil war in Europe. The last two examples being 2 world wars. That started in Europe. You know, Europeans killing Europeans. No more of that. But in order to bring all these countries together, it's very complex. You need to overcome centuries and centuries of history where they were basically used to, and I see a Portuguese flag over there. That's great, that's great. Where these countries were fighting each other and killing each other. And this is not, we don't want to go back to that. We want to build a future for our children and grandchildren where Europeans live together in peace, prosperity, and all that. Sometimes it takes hard work to get there. It takes hard negotiations. But I prefer people to negotiate on a communique, a statement, and spend hours and days and fight and say nasty things to one another than really fighting in battles with ammunition and weapons. If this is the price we have to pay for peace and stability and living together in good terms, that's a fair price to pay. So I would like you, as you engage into these technicalities of the euro, never forget that it doesn't make sense if there is no political dimension behind. And which explains, and this is my final remark after such a long speech, after such a long day for you, explains why the European leaders are so committed to find solutions. Not because they are in love with the euro, because they know that the euro is an instrument, is a tool to guarantee that there is peace, prosperity in the European Union. Don't forget that dimension. I wish you good luck. I wish to have one of your teams in New York at the finals, right? You have to do it for me because I'm Washingtonian now, so I'll be objective and our people will be very objective, but we will have a clear preference for a Washingtonian prize winner. Thank you very much and enjoy.